John Schick, Cardinal Commerce Corporation. We're a Visa company. I have been with Cardinal for over 16 years. We provide e-commerce solutions to merchants around the globe, as well as banks that issue credit cards. Software development company based out of Mentor, Ohio. Been in Mentor, Ohio since the beginning, and even after the Visa acquisition, retained our corporate headquarters here.
I'm Eric Ward. I work here at the Guild. I'm in charge of curriculum and instruction. Mostly I'm on the Java side of the house, so just kind of representing the developer side of things here.
Hi, I'm Ariel Cohen from HackerUSA. I'm the CEO of the company, from a daughter company of HackerU. HackerU is a company that teaches cybersecurity in multinational countries, like in Africa, Asia, Europe, and here in the States. And we've teamed up with the Software Guild for educating more people in cybersecurity here in the States.
My name is Alicia Alto. I work for ABB Inc. It's a global engineering firm, so we do a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of robotics and all this other stuff, but I work in power generation, so we work with customers like your First Energy and your Dominion, and I am the cybersecurity subject matter expert for our proposals group. So I work really closely with our cybersecurity engineers to provide solutions to those customers, and so I know a little bit.
Good. Hi, I'm Melanie McCain from Westfield Insurance, and we sell personal and commercial lines insurance. I've been there for about 25 years now, and most of my background's in development, from COBOL, Work10 up to Java, Groovy, Gradle, and then I went to application architecture, solution architecture, and now I'm a security architect, and I've done that for 2 years now, but prior to that, I worked closely with the security people, and liked it so much I got certified and moved over to that side of the house. So.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pat Toner. I'm an instructor here at the Guild, and I've been a developer for a really long time, but I'm mostly here to ask these guys questions about stuff. So we are talking about cybersecurity. So what scares you guys about this? Like, what keeps you up at night as somebody in this business?
It all keeps me up at night.
Why? What?
It's the unknown. It's, as soon as you think you've closed one hole, the next one opens. So if you ever think you have something really well handled, you've got the right application in place to block it, you got the right firewall rules in place, it's always changing. As soon as you close this door, another opens. So you can't sleep, you can't rest, because the people that are trying to get in will not sleep and they will not rest.
And I'll follow that up as a developer. You only have to make one mistake, and then it's over, right? So and they're just going to keep trying until you make a mistake. So you got to be diligent all the time.
Is there anything specific right now that is worrying you?
Well, there was definitely a scramble with WannaCry here in the last couple of months.
What's that?
WannaCry was the ransomware SMB vulnerability. So Microsoft had a vulnerability. The NSA so gratefully, had their toolkit released out in the public internet on the dark web, and people started taking advantage of those things. And so now it's a public known vulnerability out there that Microsoft has in their operating system that has been there for many, many years, and people started taking advantage of this and spreading malware, locking down files, preventing people from accessing their files without paying ransom, so forth. It's the classic ransomware kind of attack, but it attacked and spread in such a way. Actually, surprisingly, it could have been a lot worse than it really was.
Well,
I
I
agree.
agree.
There's just so many aspects to it. I mean, it's not only the development side, it's also from the networking side, it's from their endpoints, it's from emails, social engineering. I mean, there's so many different aspects, areas that you need to protect, and it's trying to make sure that you have all those holes plugged from all the different angles. And it's my job to make sure that those holes are plugged. And yes, you do worry that, okay, did I miss something? And plus, you're moving into new environments like the cloud, and what services do they provide? What do you need to supplement it with? And it's just a lot of things to consider.
Go ahead.
I can say that except for the money issue with cybersecurity, the real problem that I see from the point of view of Israel is the danger to human lives. I mean, someone already took a hospital as a ransom. That can risk human lives. My team have made pen testing on a Swiss company, and they found that SQL injection can open the cell to the pilot cabin or take down the airplane. Those kind of things are very frightening, especially when you're me and flying all the time.
Yeah.
People are putting their press on making sure no one will get on the airplane with a knife or a bomb, but everyone has laptops, and that's also very frightening.
And we see where there's more and more companies, you know, they might be partnering with somebody in another country, and we also have to understand the regulations and legal ramifications of doing business in that country, and do they have laws in place that help protect our data when it's being worked on in other countries? So, I mean, there's just all kinds of legal and regulatory things you need to be looking at from, depending upon where you're doing business.
Yeah. So like things like, what do we call this, WannaCry?
Yes.
When that happens and you're a business, like what's your first step? Well, how do you be proactive about making sure that your company doesn't fall prey to this?
For the WannaCry, I think did you want to answer?
Sure. It's, I think being proactive, it kind of comes way before you actually even hear about WannaCry or any sort of attack, no matter what it is. So there are a lot of different things out there that you can do, patching your systems, having a disaster recovery solution in place that you're actually testing actively to make sure that it's actually going to, in the event that something happens, you're actually able to get your systems back up and running, your endpoint protection. There's so much you can do before anything kind of gets out of hand. So on the proactive side, there's a wide spectrum of things. In the reactive, I don't really know. I think it's kind of crisis mode.
Yeah.
Really?
Incident response, you know, so patch management, that was
Yeah.
what I was going to say. Absolutely. They had a patch available for that, but if you hadn't applied it to your servers, you were vulnerable to the WannaCry, I guess.
I mean, so then,
Patch management is good, but if you happen to have a server that got hit by it, incident response, how are you going to handle that, and how do you handle that if you do get breached? What are your steps
so
you take?
does this work the way they expect? Did people send the money? Like, did they actually successfully hold people ransom this way?
They have no other choice. After that happened, either if it was a social engineering breach or a technical breach, unless they want to regain their knowledge, they have to pay, or they can bring an expert, pay him a lot of money,
Yeah.
gain some of their information, not all of it, and after a longer time. So most of the companies will just pay, and then all the cyber awareness program for all their employees, so they'll be less vulnerable for the next attack.
Yeah, it's either you have another copy of your data in a place that it didn't spread to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pay the ransom, or rebuild. That's start over. And you know, it's difficult because it's really easy to sit here on, you know, the nice side of the fence where you haven't been attacked, saying, well, we don't pay money on those things. You know, we don't pay money to terrorists. But when it's your data being held, I know police departments, hospitals, so forth, that have been
Pay.
taken down, and they got to pay.
Even the police say, I think you better pay.
The police did pay. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Okay. So, is this only for big businesses to worry about? Do medium, small businesses have the same concerns? Are the concerns different for bigger companies?
I think everybody's under attack here at this point in time, and the smaller companies just fall right under the radar, you know. It's
In a good way or a bad way?
in a bad way, because the people coming to help from the government, I can't, and the name's escaping me, but those agencies are working with the big companies. They're not, the other ones are under the radar, they're on their own, they don't have the staff. I think they're in a worse position than the big guys.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You'll find that a lot of these attacks, including WannaCry, they aren't targeted. Okay, these are attacks that they're just drive-by shooting, and they're waiting to see who they hit. And sometimes small companies get hit. Someone I know personally has a small business, got 5 employees. They got completely locked up.
You don't hear as much about those, but they're happening too.
Yeah.
It's just
So
unfortunate.
and you don't hear about them because they're small. You know, it's one of those things that we've gone through multiple things ourselves. Nothing where there was actually a breach or an incident, but where there was a suspicion of one. And those organizations, the FBI, Secret Service, they won't even take your call unless it's over $500,000. And when you're in a small business and someone's going to hold your data ransom for $5,000, it's either I can go back to work tomorrow and pay $5,000, or I sit here and I get shut down. So it's impacting everybody. I don't think that a lot of the most recent threats that have gone out there, shy of some DDoS attacks, and I'm sure we'll talk those types of things, but most of the cybersecurity threats that are out there are not really targeting any one particular group. They're out there, and whoever they hit, and hopefully something sticks, and we're going to go with it.
I'll explain the process of what's happening. The attacker is buying a malware software in the darknet for $100 or sometimes even less in Bitcoins, so it's untraceable. And then he sends thousands of emails, sometimes spoofed emails. And by doing so, he is not targeting someone particularly. Some people are not doing it just for the money, they're doing it just for fun.
Yeah.
So they don't care, even if it's your personal computer that you might as well just reboot it and delete everything because you don't care. They do it for fun. It started many years ago, and it's just getting worse and worse because more people are exposed to the darknet.
Yeah, to that point, the WannaCry ransomware is not a new thing. This is just the latest variant that was leveraging some very powerful tools to, like I said, in my opinion, I think it could have been a lot worse. It was designed to spread very rapidly and very aggressively, and I think in general the community did a good job of responding to it.
So why was it a problem now then? If this isn't like a new, what's different about this one? I'm sorry.
It was just the release of public information. The vulnerability that was there for many years that no one knew about was released in part because of the tools that were released by the NSA. These were things that the NSA, our governments, were using to spy on. You fill in the blank. I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories as to who the government's spying on, but more than likely you and I and everybody in between. But these were things that they had in their back pocket that happened to get out. And I think we could talk about Snowden and some of the other NSA leaks that have happened in the past, but intelligence leaks occurred, and therefore this latest variant was just based off of that.
So what can I do to protect myself?
I think we touched on patching. Be diligent about patching, and it's difficult. If you're in a large, at home, patching's easy, okay?
People still don't do it.
They still don't do it. You can even set it to automatically do it. People don't do it, but patching's easy. As an organization, patching gets a lot more difficult when you're dealing with thousands of computers or hundreds or thousands of servers. I just this week still found a few servers. We scan our networks that were still vulnerable to WannaCry. As much as we put things in place on the edges. So patching, and then from a business standpoint, having a good security awareness team that meets on a regular basis with the most recent threats and talk through it. And that comes from reading through forums, signing up for newsletters, so forth. What are the current threats that are emerging over the last week type of thing.
Yeah.
There's a group out there that puts out critical security controls, the top 20 critical security controls, and they talk about keeping an inventory of the devices that are on your network, and they have a whole 20 things they say to help protect yourself, and they are prioritized. So number one is the most important thing you should be doing in your organization, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I would definitely Google critical security controls and look to see how you've implemented, what you have implemented in your organization and what you don't, maybe a roadmap to get some of the other ones implemented.
I'd say no one of those 20 things is difficult to do, but they all take time. And as an organization, you have to weigh, what's your highest risk? Because patching computers, it's like, oh yeah, well, that's easy. But again, it starts compounding. We got to do that. And then you got to make sure this is up to date. You got to make sure the firewalls are up to date. So it all starts piling on and it becomes very challenging. Again, what keeps you up at night? You're always going to leave that window cracked,
I think their number one is like having an inventory of your servers in that, so that, because you can have a patching program, but if you don't have all your servers included in that patching program, you have this vulnerability somewhere. And so they're saying, number one, know what's on your network and then patch it accordingly.
What's on your network, what's in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, do you test yourselves? Like, do you try to send this ransomware to your own employees?
They actually, they actually have a section for that critical security controls where they talk about auditing the controls. And
Yeah.
they do have steps that, you should actually place a couple devices on a couple of different areas within the network and see how long it takes you to detect them and how long it takes you to disable them.
Right.
So yeah, they do have auditing things along with those controls, how you can test them. Make sure that you're affected.
The answer is yes. Always testing, always scanning. We scan our network nightly.
Yeah.
In general, I've found a huge change. It used to be, firewalls, block it at the door, block everything at the door. And you'll find that the organization, the weakest link is the one person that clicks on the email, okay? And no matter how many security and awareness training videos I've put people through and so forth, it's gonna happen. CEO's just as guilty as the receptionist up front of opening up that email. I'm just as guilty. I'm a little more diligent in it, but I'd be crazy to think that I'm not, guilty. But we test, we scan all the
test for
time.
them
We
as well.
do internal programs, we fish our employees, we record who's clicking on things.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that will drop thumb drives in the parking lot and see who plugs them in.
I'll give you an example about social engineering that is happening sometimes, especially to large companies that has a LinkedIn with the full details of who is the manager of who and what's their contact.
Yeah.
Let's say that the software guild is in the LinkedIn with all that information. And then I'm spoofing an SMS to you from Eric saying, I've sent you an urgent email, please take care of it, thank you. And I send you also a spoofed email from Eric's email. Most of the chances that you will see the text, open the email, completely ignore any micro
Red
alert
flags.
that you will see, and just press yes, 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 and that's it. From that point, the attacker can take over your CNC. He can also be able to send you a malware for a WannaCry or any other ransom program. It will probably be something that most of the companies will fall into. And my company is doing a lot of cyber awareness all over the world. And I'm telling you, we're doing it time after time, and it's working every time.
What's working? Like what you get?
Spoofing
Oh.
the basic thing. After I took over a bank's bank's employee computer, I can do privilege escalation from that point to become an administrator, and from there get all the data I want, even if it's not ransomware, if it's just steal information. It's happening all the time. Sometimes the companies that been compromised don't even know that until weeks, sometimes months after. It's really depend on the skill of the attacker.
Yeah, in the payments industry, I think I've seen, so this was a couple of years ago, I was at a conference, but the number was about 270 days. That's the average time that it takes to detect someone's in your systems. And so that's where I was saying that it used to be all about keep everybody out, and now it's like they're gonna get in. Just accept the fact they're gonna get in. Now it's around detect. And that's where using this, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, having, antivirus has its limitations. I mean, all of this is designed, I think after WannaCry came out, there was, hundreds of thousands of variants within weeks where people are just changing just enough so it gets around the antivirus. So antivirus has its place, but it's not foolproof. You're looking at signature definitions and applications, and there's just, we can have long conversations, web application firewalls and so forth, but it's detection, it's finding the anomalies in the network and being up to date on that.
So then do you just assume all of your employees are going to fall for this?
Absolutely.
You reminded
Only
me
takes
something
one.
funny. You actually reminded me something funny that I've been in Ethiopia with the CEO of Bank of Ethiopia. And I was asking him, so how many attacks do you suffer every month? Tells me none. And I'm telling him, oh, great. So how much money do you see that is missing up till this point? He told me, we don't miss any money. Told him, do a check on the past 10 months. And then after 3 months, I got an email from him saying that they have about $1.5 million missing. Because in Ethiopia, they write on books everything. It's not just on the computer, so they can check it. It just shows everyone is being attacked. The question is, do they know that? Or?
But what's crazy is in order to even determine he was attacked and was breached, it took you to bring it up to him and then to have to go back through a paper ledger and compare that against the books.
Yeah.
And it's not just companies like Ethiopia. From being in the banking industry, it's not that far-fetched. It's really not. And it happens all the time. And
What
people
order
have
of
no idea.
magnitude of money are we talking that people lose? Like, is 1.5 million a lot? Is that a little?
Out of 400 billion a year? No.
I think it probably depends on who you're talking about, the industry and the company, the size of the like he said, the relative size of the loss compared to all of their assets.
Yeah.
I think it really varies widely, I'm sure.
There was a group recently in Russia that in the course of 2 weeks siphoned off 90 million and then disappeared. You'll find that the criminals aren't greedy in the sense that they'll get in, they could have gotten 900 million. But they took just enough so they could get away, and then they'll go dark for a year, 2 years, and then come back and hit them again. But time is one of those things that, we said, they have time. So no matter how much you build up your defenses, they have time, and they will be patient, and they will find the vulnerability and get in. Once they get in, if you give them time, they will spread.
Yeah. This is why hunters, there is a new profession in cybersecurity that's called hunters. They are the analysts that search for the crumbles that the hackers leave behind, because there's always some information they leave behind, even after they took the money. And it's very hard to find them, and it requires many skills and a lot of knowledge and experience.
What kind of information do they leave behind?
Well, they leave behind their MAC ID. Even if it's scrambled, they leave an IP that leads to another IP, that leads to another IP, that eventually you need to find certain things. Sometimes they leave some traces of identity. It's so complex to find them. Sometimes it takes months to reach to a lead that will bring eventually, after another few months, to find the identity of the hacker. So hunters are hunting people after they did what they done. They are the analysts, they're let's call it the elite of the risk managers.
Okay.
But there also need to be data analysts in a very high level, and they are working on so many graphs. If you see their workplace, it will not even seem reasonable to you. It looks like someone who is working on the stock market. But
So, okay, they figure it out. They hunt them down, they figure it out. Like, what
And-
happens then?
Sometimes they are able to get to the specific person by watching cameras on a location at a certain time. Sometimes they can get to that kind of information. Sometimes they can find the identity, but they can't really find the person behind that identity. This is why they're being paid only for success most of the times, unless they are full-time employees. Many of them are working as freelancers. They're taking projects based on success. It's becoming very popular the past 6 months. But I think that this profession will be a lot more popular as time will continue. But it requires very, very smart, intelligent, with a high mathematic capabilities to do this job.
What kind of math?
I know that
I'm sorry.
the last conference I was at, they were talking about endpoint protection. A lot of things they're pushing is the real-time analytics, the behavioral analytics to detect it earlier and quicker, that, hey, something different is happening here, and detecting that, so that they're really pushing that to help with, so they're not in there for 200 and some days undetected. Analytics is a big thing that they're pushing now. Now, how good are all these products at it? They all say they can do it.
Yeah.
How good are they at it? Well, that part I'm not sure, but I would just look for that particular
Well,
area to mature
It's
as we
to the
go.
point of the hunter, but using your business intelligence, using, the new, artificial intelligence as far as building these things together, but it's looking at the logs from the servers, the firewalls, the switches, the intrusion detection, your antivirus. It's taking all those logs, funneling them into a centralized point, scanning all of them, and then finding the pattern. More than likely than not, you could sit there and look at your firewall logs all day long, you'd never see it. You'd look at this, you'd
Right.
never see it. It's combining all those facets, and from there, you then can start seeing the pattern and picking it up. So you'll have a lot of companies out there right now that are, having you take your sys logs and your application logs and funneling it into a centralized point that they can scrub it. A lot of the big guys, this is where it's at. Cisco doesn't want to be in the, the switch route, firewall mechanism anymore. They want to be a security company. IBM wants to be a security company, all the way down to your ISPs, level 3. They're scanning all the traffic, trying to come up with that data metrics so they can then notify their customers in advance, hey, someone's poking at you. They haven't gotten in yet, but someone's trying to do something with you.
I have to assume that a lot of new machine learning techniques are being applied to this kind of stuff. Like, how is that going to affect things? Like, is that driving the kind of thing you said, or
I think it's an aspect of it, yeah.
could it drive the other side too?
Always.
Yeah.
You'll find that more often than not, we're reacting to the new techniques. Usually, it's not the security guys that are coming up with the new techniques.
Yeah.
It's reacting to those techniques. Or if they are coming up with the new techniques, it's hacking, but it's on the other side. It's the white hat side of the house. Back to the NSA having their toolkit released. It was, those techniques were come up by, whether they were developed by the NSA or whether they stole them from somebody else. Those techniques initially were not designed for good.
Yeah.
Yeah, basic, learn from what's happening out there today. Make sure you're at least protecting yourself. Like, there should not be a SQL injection. That's been on the top 10 OWASP list for years. It should not be there anymore, but we still have SQL injection because people aren't checking to make sure that they're not
So,
implementing one of those.
Right.
so when you design a security system and you assume that your developers are going to leave SQL injection, like, how do you
There's-
mitigate that?
So like in the new DevOps, they're like scan, scan, scan. Scan the code, scan the images that you're putting out there into the containers or the VMs, and start at the beginning, scan from the very beginning, and make them aware that you just introduced a SQL injection. You need to fix that before I'm ever going to let you make it to this next stage.
There's automated tools out there
Yeah.
that will scan your code, scan your web pages, it will scan all of it. Automatic vulnerability scanning all the way down to the source code and detect those things. Find your vulnerabilities. And they're pretty good. There's still things, peer review and human intervention, we still do both. But absolutely, start with automated scanning. That's going to catch a large portion of it.
And from your
Okay.
development perspective, most applications today are built with libraries. You're not writing all the code yourself. You're
Yeah.
putting together libraries. You're orchestrating it together. You
It's
need
lo-
things to be scanning those libraries.
Especially as we start getting into things like Docker.
Yeah.
You know, you start then having a public trust on this is a official build that you can download and use. And there is now you have to inherently trust certain things that you're getting off of the internet. And it's a challenge. And so we've had to put in specific procedures as to, yes, we trust this, where we don't trust this. It also gets into what you're saying with licensing. You know, what type of license model is this? Open source isn't always free. You know, it doesn't mean that you can then build a product around it and sell it for money, especially in an industry like that. So most people say, well, yeah, it's free, it's open source. Well, if you're at home hacking around, sure. But if you're building a product that you're gonna build a company on, you got to watch out where you get into it.
Build your own source code. And one more important thing is most of the programming teams are being under pressure to make it in time for a deadline, for a version. And this is where the real problem is, because the management don't understand what secure coding is. And this is why they press and press and press, and the programmers just want the program to work without any limitations. They don't care what the vulnerability is, they just want to keep their job. And this is where vulnerabilities start. I think that the more people will invest.
A lot of legacy stuff out there where security wasn't even thought about it when that thing was written. It's still running today, and guess what? It's full of holes.
And it's running because nobody knows how to get rid of it. And so when you have a security vulnerability on something that was written 20 years ago, running on an AS2.
If I change that library, oh my gosh, that's going to break the entire thing, and nobody knows how to fix it.
Right. It's all a money problem. People don't want to invest in a new code of something that was written 20 years ago because it will be more secure. They take the chance.
So Bitcoin, how does that impact things? Because I imagine having anonymous ways to pay each other makes it way easier to hide a whole bunch of money. Especially when you have to funnel $90 million around in secret.
Well, it makes things easier to, if you remember the old movies when someone robbed the bank and said, I want an unmarked bills, because otherwise they could be traced. Bitcoin cannot be traced at all. It's a very, I call it very dangerous coin, because you can use it to buy drugs on the internet, to buy illegal porn on the internet, to buy services like assassination on the internet, like hurting someone on the internet without anyone being able to trace you to how you paid. And that is the most scary thing about Bitcoin, in my opinion, that the fact that it's untraceable has its good side, because it keeps your privacy. But on the other way around, it's allowing you to do bad things with your money, illegal things. And therefore, I think that the longer we keep see the Bitcoin being used to do bad things, more people will probably continue doing it, and more people will take advantage of it. And this is where I think that the Bitcoin is not a positive add-on to our currency exchange.
Well said. It's there's Bitcoin came out. I mean, it was more of a challenge type of thing, and it's out there. It's a legitimate form of payment, but yeah, what we're finding more often than not, it's not being used to buy goods and services that you would, normally buy. It's specifically being used in a lot of bad ways, all the way to the point where we were talking about the ransomware earlier. None of those ransomware attacks said, "Hey, write me a check," right?
Right.
So it's opened up and made certain aspects of criminal activity a lot simpler, because that payment method is far less likely to be traced and gets the governments out of it. Let's face it, if you're paying in anything with currency, there's some government interaction. And it now starts eliminating the government ability to be a part of that.
I think that eventually there will be rules that will compromise a little bit our privacy, but will make the ISP give all the information about any Bitcoin transfers, not in the far future. I think it's going to happen eventually because the ISP holds the information, the real information of where the Bitcoin came from. I think this is the only way that the world will be able to deal with this issue.
Would people stop using it then? Like, I don't know, what's
I hope for bad purposes.
Well, yeah, sure. But I mean, is that practical? Like, I don't know what the practical impacts of that would be.
Well, some pacifists will say, no, it's compromising our policy of privacy and everything. But I think that the majority of people will say it's about time. Because if anyone can use that coin to do illegal things, I don't think that it will do good, even for those who like to keep their privacy to their own and are not doing illegal things. Because someone may, I don't know, order an assassination on them, for instance, or maybe someone will buy drugs and invite their son to use them. I think that eventually the ISP will be the best way to prevent Bitcoins from doing from being used to order illegal materials in the internet.
Yeah, I think at some point in time, we talk about money having governance. That no matter what currency you talk about, somebody's governing that money. I think that will eventually come in with Bitcoin, where the world powers will have to step up and say, we're going to start blocking it right on the the core routers on the internet. We're not going to allow this to go on any longer. It's the only way you're going to stop it. It has to be governed in some way. It's not coincidence that Bitcoin over the last 2 to 3 years has just exploded. I mean, the value of Bitcoin and what one Bitcoin was 3 years ago versus where it is today. I mean, you would have made yourself a very wealthy person if you invested all your money in Bitcoin a couple of years ago. That being said, it's volatile. It's had its crashes in the past. But there's a reason it's growing that fast, and it's because it's being used for very specific activities where there's a lot of money that can be thrown away.
Yeah, and Bitcoin is not the only electronic coin
Right, absolutely.
anymore.
Yeah, there's other cryptocurrency out there, so.
Do you think this ends up with these things being illegal to even have?
I don't think it's possible because you can't, it's like saying that the dollar is illegal. It can cause a world catastrophe. But you can, in a very manipulative way, make it lose more than 90% of its value if you block what it's being used for the most. People will just want to get rid of it because it's no more, it's not useful for them because they can't buy things anonymously in the dark net. This is more practical than just say it's illegal. I don't think that anyone will have the nerve to do something like that.
That would require a lot of different governments to say the same thing, and that's not going to happen. So to your point, yeah.
Or someone like North Korea.
Devalue it. And how do you devalue it? Make it so it's not, it can't be used for the things that people want to use it for. That's the only way to get rid of it.
Yeah.
There's good things that come from it. Again, I don't want to, come away from this conversation that Bitcoin's this, really negative, bad thing. I think we've focused a lot on the bad things that can happen with Bitcoin, but yeah, it's definitely something you need to be aware of.
I mean, honestly, most of the things I read about Bitcoin tend to focus on the positive aspects of it. And it's interesting to hear that there are really horrible things that are happening because of it, because I don't hear about those.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the cyber defense industry, if I wanted to get good at it, what would you suggest I do? Like, what was your route? And would you suggest that for other people?
Well, personally, I worked closely with people from the security department. I was like a security champion on the application side of the house. But I went out and I got certified. I got certified and I got my CSSLP, which is security in the software development lifecycle. And then I went out and got my CISSP, which has 8 large domains. And basically, so I went out and got certified. That's what I did.
I guess I'm not as technically involved in the cybersecurity happenings as everyone here is, but I think one important thing and something that keeps me up at night is people not being afraid to learn about it. So maybe if you're not interested in going to be certified, actually sitting down and talking with or being open to learn about or work with people who are providing cybersecurity solutions to your customers or who are teaching about them is a really easy way. And I think it's really important. You'd be shocked to hear the number of people who scoff at the work that our team is doing for them. It's for everyone.
We're seen as an inhibitor currently, rather than,
Yeah.
we're just as important as that requirement or that tester, or you would never take anything to production without testing it. You should never take anything to production without understanding what vulnerabilities you have in place for that and, trying to secure it to the best of your ability. But we're still, we're still fighting our way to get into the very left of that development and that inception of the project so that we're thinking about security all the way through. But I'm with you on that.
So why do you think they don't care then?
People don't like change. It's something new. It's costing people money. I mean, we rolled out a baseline security scope that is supposed to go on every single control system that leaves our building, that leaves our engineers' hands, and people get so frustrated. Well, the customer didn't ask for this. They're going to want it. They're going to want it when something happens, and now they have to react. Now they're in crisis mode.
Yeah, we should be capturing security requirements just like we're capturing any other requirement, but it's,
People
for
are
a
just
lot of
afraid of change.
organizations, it's new. It's seen as, I'm based on my delivery, and this is slowing me down.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
I can tell you about your question. I think that anyone that has mathematic potential, that want to earn a lot of money, and on the way help the world to be a safer place, should test himself, see if he can fit to any kind of cybersecurity program that exists. Either if it's in the pen testing, the coders, or the risk management, the analysts, or any other field, they better test themselves. They better see if they can fit. Every school that teaches has their own methods of how to sort the students and to see who fits and who is who really wants it but is not qualified to learn it. I think that anyone that likes this field and want to be a part of a better place should try, at least see if they can fit any kind of program. Because of course it's cost effective, they will earn a lot of money because there is a shortage that I'm sure that all of you know of over 1 million workers. And there is that shortage in the next 2 years will get to about 2 million. And if there will be, and I really hope that there will be not, but if there will be another major terrorist attack that, I don't know, will take over the SCADA remote of a nuclear power plant and will cause a lot of damage in human lives, not just money. I believe that the shortage will even go larger. So it's a good profession. It's a safe profession to work in. It has many good years ahead of us. And we need as many people as possible in this field right now, especially all the smart people. We need as many smart people in the good side, because the dark side has probably a lot of smart people of their own.
Well, and from my perspective, I mean, I kind of started the way you did, Mel, and I'm a developer, and I got to work at some companies where we started doing some authentication, some authorization, started looking into libraries and kind of, understood what the, what security was about. And I'm certainly no expert. I mean, I'm not a security architect or anything like that, but I think it speaks to, to what you said. There's a lot of levels to this, right? You can be on the management side, you can educate yourself so you can help make good management decisions, and you can drive your projects with security in mind, and you can let people know that that's part of, what this project should be. As a developer, you mentioned OWASP, being aware of the top 10 vulnerabilities. There's an open source nonprofit that, puts out all of the top vulnerabilities for the last year. What the vulnerabilities are, how important they are, how easy they are to patch, and to your point, SQL injection is still at the top of the list, which is ridiculous,
It's
right? 'Cause
crazy that it's still there.
It's
And
the
it's so
easiest
easy
thing
to
in the world to
fix.
fix, right? I mean, it's like you don't even have to think about it. Just write your code
You
the
can
right
hack
way.
into an airplane with SQL
Right,
injection.
right, and so I don't think, I think, to a certain extent, right, if you want to go into, being a security expert, that's a great field to go into, but I think we all, if we're in the tech field, we all have a part to play. Whether you're a user on the network and, don't click on things and be aware of phishing attacks and those kinds of things, up to, I'm a Java developer, what do I need to do to play my part to secure my application? So, and that's kind of the part I've played, and I enjoy that. Again, I'm not an expert, but you get to kind of see how, you need to write good, secure code so you can place that in the ecosystem and everybody else can play their part, and you do the best you can to fight back the vulnerabilities, and the attacks that people have.
So from my side, dealing with software development, that's one aspect of securing the company. It's big for us, but it's to the point where we do our routine training. We fall under a bunch of different security compliance audits and so forth that keep us honest and force us to do things. We always like to take it one step further, but everyone keeps here talking like SQL injection. I intentionally have things internally that are segmented off that are vulnerable to SQL injection, and I see when my software developers find them and point them out. I actually test people by doing that stuff. So it's one of my, and so we do our internal, OWASP training or secure coding development training. We've brought in outside parties to do that. We've hired outside consultants to come in and do in-person training. And we found actually the best training we got was give each one of the developers a topic and have them teach the other developers. And we found really good success with doing that, and they really enjoyed doing it, and have some kind of war games inside the network where we would put things, we'd intentionally put vulnerabilities in the network and have them go find them.
What kind of topics? Like what would they teach each other?
I'm not on the development side of the house, but
Like cross-site
cross-site
scripting, identify SQL
know,
injection, things like that.
Yeah.
And just being aware, some of the stuff is not necessarily, writing your code per se, but dependency management, making sure you know where your code comes from, having a good, just knowing what your internal library is, the officially blessed version of things.
Yes,
that
the
you
one
can
that's-
put in things, and just being aware of, don't go grab some stupid code off of Stack Overflow and put it in my application, because if you don't understand what it is,
Yeah.
Most modern development tools, by default, go download a whole bunch of random code from the internet. Like when you click clean and build, you make a hello world project in almost any tool, you click clean and build, it's gonna go download like 50,000 things from the internet that you have no idea where they came from.
Yeah.
Like how do you just not do that ever?
Yes. And I have developers that hate me for it. But yeah, luckily I came from an organization from the inception when we were built out as a security company. And a security breach would have been the end of us. We would have crumbled. We would have never been able to survive it. So from the CEO down, I was very lucky. I always had someone above me that supported security as our top priority. It slows down a project. As much as I'm still going to get beat over the head by the CEO as to why it's taking longer, it was still at the end of the day I could sit down, have a drink with them and say, it's important we do it this way Otherwise, we may not have tomorrow to talk about. And not a lot of organizations have that luxury. Not a lot of CEOs and presidents and so forth. That top-down approach to security doesn't fall in a lot of companies. So I've been lucky in that aspect, because it can be a real challenge, especially when it comes down to getting a budget to secure things. That's always going to be a challenge.
That's
But
exactly the
tooling does
problem.
block downloading of those libraries. You can block it from the download. You can.
Yeah.
Some of those tools allow you to do that.
Think that CEO today make sure that everyone are dressed according to the dress code, and that everyone are aware to sexual harassment rules and everything around it, and it starts from the CEO down. The same goes with cybersecurity. Security, it has to be not just the IT team concern. It has to come from the CEO. This is why when my team is doing cyber awareness, we have it in 3 levels. The first level is the entry level of all the employees with computer access. The second level is all the IT managers that learn how to do a bit more complicated things in the cybersecurity field. And the third are all the managers. Because if the managers won't understand what they are dealing with and how much they are compromising their company by not giving it the right tools or the right budget, there is nothing the IT manager can do. And this is why I think that your company is very unique about it. I struggle with CEOs explaining them why they have to be in cybersecurity awareness program, and they say, no, just send my employees. I don't need to be in that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't enforce it, then there's no reason. If you don't have, you can write all the policies in the world. If you don't have the authority to enforce it, they're not going to stick.
You have to understand what you're dealing with.
You guys have any questions?
All right, so we have a fancy game mic here because we're recording this. I will try to get to you. If I can't make it all the way, please make it to me. Like, you gotta get really close. So fair warning.
I'll go first, just forgive me for my English. So you guys were talking a lot about the cybersecurity threats that we're facing, and the fact that the managers in the companies, different companies, do not have the awareness. And I'm asking myself, in a lot of territories, other different territories, let's say fire departments, so there were like regulations by the state, right, that were saying that you have to plug those things and have the pumps and the fire security and policies, and in roads, we created the whole system to create a better environment. Do you think that in the upcoming future, the government will force companies in order to, this is the loss of millions and risk the security, the life of people? Do you think they force us to they will make regulations, and how would that affect of the market? Because right now, let's say 5% of the companies that I know, maybe 5% have someone that really managing the cybersecurity field in the company. None of them have someone to do it. They just have IT managers. And so, yeah, how is the future going to look like?
So I'll start just from the standpoint of, my, compliance, security awareness, so forth, from the very beginning was, it was thrust upon me because we were in the payment cards industry. We were dealing with credit cards, we were dealing with banks, and you have to fall inside of that. If you work for healthcare, you have HIPAA, you have these different things around that. I didn't have a whole lot of choice in it. What I did have a choice in is taking, what PCI, DSS, the payment card industry data security standards are, and taking them further. I started an initiative in my company to get ISO 27001 certified. So there are international standards out there. As far as can they be enforced down, the challenge you come across is, at the end of the day, how does it impact business and commerce? And that could be so costly. I can tell you personally how much of my budget for the company goes to this. For my business, it's critical. For some mom and pop shop, it may not be, or somebody, you know, say a 50 employee, you know, organization, and it could put businesses, you know, it could just bury them in the regulations. So I would say, yes, I think the government at some point in time will step in. I think it'll be way past due when they do, and it's going to be extremely disruptive when it does occur.
All right, and do you think that then every organization maybe will hold some personnel?
Well, actually, I mean, to your point, there's, you know, not even being in the payment card industry, but there's certain things. Europe is actually pretty good with safe harbor, and now I can't remember the new regulation that's replacing safe harbor, but if you're a company that's dealing with any kind of personally identifiable information, PIE, social security numbers, names, address, phone numbers, anything that can determine who you are in the digital world, you know, that you have to fall under in Europe and the EU, the safe harbor, and prove out that you can protect that data. Now, depending on your size, may determine whether or not it's a self-audit and you're filling out a questionnaire saying, yes, I'm doing these things and I've signed off on it because I'm the, you know, executive at the company. Or if you're big enough, you know, someone actually comes on site and validates that you are doing those protective mechanisms. So there is some of that out there. You probably know more than this. In the US, we don't have a whole lot there. I mean, there's penalties. I think Massachusetts a few years ago had enforced a state penalty that if, there's nothing that says you have to do these things, but if you breached personally identifiable information, it was enforceable of up to $5,000 per record. So you have an Excel spreadsheet with, you know, 1,000 people's names in it, and it gets leaked out there, and for some reason that leads to identity theft. You know, they could have been held, I mean, that would bury a company. So there are fines out there, but as far as regulations enforcing those,
I can add a little bit more information. Unfortunately, right now the regulations are more from the expert of knowledge, because let's say the United States don't want their cryptography knowledge to be delivered to hostile countries, for instance. So there is a regulation about that. When it comes to, let's say, insurances companies that has all the information that can cause identity steal, they must do a pen testing every once a year. Not nearly enough in my opinion, because from my experience, the DMZ servers are vulnerable. The DMZ servers are the window that allows you to watch your details when you're opening the computer and surfing to your insurance company and downloading your information. When there is a door into your computer from the DMZ, there is always a door to the other way, and there is always a way to abuse that vulnerability. But about your primary question, I'm sure that some regulations will be done, just like after September 11, so many regulations has been done in the airports. Unfortunately, most of the times, and history teaches us that we're not doing it in time. We're always doing it a little bit,
Right.
a little bit too late.
After the damage has been done.
it'll happen,
Yeah.
it'll be too late.
Yeah, and they have to have the people to do it. So it'll be based by industry and based on the resources they have. I mean, to go out to, it's not realistic for them to have the ability to go out and back up those regulations on all those mom and pops. But we should be looking at those mom and pops if we're integrating with them. I mean, we have a very active vendor management, vendor security program where we're looking at the vendors that we're integrating with to make sure that they're not opening up a vulnerability to us, you know, and to make sure that, you know, they're taking care of, especially if they have our information, that they have responsibility to protect their information as well. So you maybe as they integrate more and more with other companies, you know, it might not come from the government, but it might come from
The other companies.
the other companies.
But yeah, definitely in the sense of how would it ever come about? My industry, it's regulated. Healthcare
Right.
industry is regulated. When
Insurance,
it comes
yes.
down to the utilities, you work, we said, with
Right.
First Energy. I don't know specifically what's going on there, but I guarantee if the government hasn't already started doing it, they're going to.
Right.
There are very, very real threats against our public utility systems
Oh,
today.
yeah.
They are
There are regulations rolled out by, don't quote me on this, it's the North American Electric Reliability Commission. They have a set of regulations that they hold different utilities accountable against based on their size and their estimated impact to the grid if something happens to their operations. And a lot of that is reactive, and there's still, I mean, there are new rollouts of versions of, I think we're on SIP 6 or 7 at this point, but they're constantly rolling out updates to these things, and I would have to assume that it's reactive, and I think that other industries will follow in that route. I know that, like in the Ukraine in 2015, there was a huge power outage, a blackout that they were able to trace back to cyber activity, and you got to know that if there weren't any regulations then, they're either working on them now or they have already rolled them out, because unfortunately it's still it's still in a transitory period where people are reacting, and I don't think enough people realize what problem their cybersecurity can be or should be, but people are learning, and unfortunately from experience, I think.
The thing is that if you'll take a major electricity company, all that they need to do by the regulations are pen testing. If the pen testers didn't find anything and something will happen, the insurance company will cover for whatever will happen. The regulations will not apply on them because they did what the regulation asked, the pen testing. So they are okay, they are safe.
So,
This is the major problem.
I can't speak authoritatively to it, but I guarantee our public utility, the electrical companies, have to go through pen tests. But like you said, it's probably once a year, which is not nearly enough.
No.
I'd imagine it'll come down to awareness that this can really impact your life in real ways. Like, we have building codes because at some point in time, buildings have collapsed and killed people. And we have fire codes because we've watched people burn to death. Like, horrific things happen. And until you mentioned a hospital being held ransom, that would have never occurred to me, that somebody would do that. Like, that never would have occurred to
A
me.
year ago.
And it's not been one, it's been multiple.
But like, it's gonna take really visible things probably to go bad in bad ways before people start paying attention to those kinds of things.
It's not that. Up until now, it was just for money, just for the ransom. What will happen when someone won't want any ransom?
Right.
He just want to see people get hurt.
Yeah.
This is when things may be
Just
changed.
this past week, you talk about, maybe not be cybersecurity, but, North Korea loves to throw out their threats, let's get through that. But, that by just detonating a nuclear warhead in space, 250 miles up, would create enough of an EMP that you could take out all of Manhattan. You wouldn't destroy the buildings, you wouldn't kill the people intentionally, but by taking out all the electronics in an area the size of, New York, it will result in deaths. Lots and lots of deaths.
Only in Israel, we are doing always assessment on I'm not sure if I'm compromising anything. In Israel, we always prepare for many kinds of occasions. One of the occasions is an EMP bomb. An EMP bomb itself will cause only several people to die because those who need life support and things like that. But the panic will kill about 1 to 2% of the population. Just the panic. So that's what, how many people are there in Manhattan? 8 million? How much is it?
I think
2%?
almost 20 million.
20? Oh, I'm sorry. 8 is 20 million. So think that 2% out of that is quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think we got another question.
Yeah.
So I've heard of a bunch of top-down approaches to cybersecurity. Are there any like bottom-up approaches? For
I'm
example,
sorry, what?
like say you have an employee who sees a notification that his antivirus is off, or his computer or her computer did something that's never done before, and they're not sure what they should do. Are there any processes or policies in place so that they can go to someone and say, hey, something happened, or say, hey, my manager is doing unsecure behavior. Can you take care of it without me being retaliated against? Is there anything like that at your companies or such?
Quick answer is yes. We do have those things. I would say on a weekly basis, I do have employees that will forward me an email saying, hey, this looks like spam or this looks like phishing, and we'll take it. I head up our information security management team, and we'll actually look at it. And if it seems significant enough, or hey, we've gotten 5 of these in the last week, we'll then mock that up, send it out to everyone, and say, be aware, this one's just one you got to keep an eye on. It's been out there and it's actually pretty clever. So we do see people reporting things to us all the time. I think a strong security awareness program with your employees leads to that. Like I said earlier, I think your individual employees, everybody has just as much of an information, or as much as a role in securing the company's information as I do. It starts from the bottom up, because it only takes one person to click on the wrong email and so forth. As far as, each organization is different as far as people reporting things up and, hey, someone's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think that comes down to just how your organization is structured. I like to think that mine is, open enough that we can have those types of conversations and deal with that. That depends on the individual. Some people just are really scared to speak up. They're afraid of looking stupid because, hey, this looks funny, and it's like, no, that's just an email from your manager. I've always made it very clear. I'll never hold something. If you bring something to my attention, I'm never going to make fun of you for it. I'd rather have 50 emails come over my way for me to inspect and be like, yeah, those are all good, than have that one clicked on.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you can get everybody in the organization to realize it's everybody's responsibility, information security is everybody's responsibility, you've definitely mastered the bottom-up approach. When it's coming in, when it wasn't really considered in the beginning, you have to push it from top down. You've got to get that upper management buy-in and work it down till you get it down to the individual, and everybody realizes they have a responsibility, then you're doing good things. And that does come about through security awareness programs and things like
And
that.
I think as an organization, just you saying that, it sparks me. I'm like, I should have something in place where there's a rewards program, for X amount of things that you report to me. You get a gift card to Amazon, or you get, something that's
We've done that kind of
make
thing.
it a fun game, to reward the people that are bringing that to you, because that's the most valuable person in my organization is the one that brings that email to me.
That's a good idea, by the way.
You reward that behavior, and that's how you get it to spread like wildfire.
Yeah, we've
You'd
done
be
that.
amazed at what people do for a $25
These
Amazon
people
gift
are
card.
champions,
It's really quite impressive.
Well, you're recognizing the behavior and you're making their managers aware of that behavior, and then it just kind of snowballs.
Free lunch on John goes a long way.
All right, let's get one more in here.
All right, thank you for, I have a couple of questions if I can. First of all, how do you deal with the human factor? Because that's what will keep me awake at night. And first of all, I just graduated, so I wanted to know what kind of skill set are critical in your opinion. You talked about math, but how about AI and machine learning, for example?
I'll start.
Go for it.
About the human factor, cyber awareness trainings are mandatory, because right now we have to be smart enough in order to close the breaches for the attackers. The easiest breach is the social part. Now, if we make sure that people protect their password and change it in time, don't click on anything they don't need to click, report on anything that is even a little bit suspicious, and of course maintain it, just like I said before, like you maintain the sexual harassment rules, and like the dress code rules, this is the best way to deal with it. You have to make sure that anyone that has computer access in your company is taking cyber awareness. Afterwards, it's not ending by that. It's something that you need to maintain. Do it every year, at least one time, if not 2 times. It's not many hours to do, but it's very helpful for the organization. And of course, test them. If you're taking a company to do it, simulate breaches, send them spoofed emails, do all kind of tests and see who is more aware and who is not. And if someone is falling too many times because he's unaware or don't care, as a manager, you need to deal with it in a more...
How about the top management?
Well, the top management has to be fully aware of everything that is happening and to give backup to the IT team and make sure that all the regulations of the safety of the company when it comes to cybersecurity are being placed. Give the budget for machines that will help the company protecting the data, and of course make sure that there is a budget always for cyber awareness training and tests. It's relatively a small amount of money. It's a few $100s per year per employee if you are overdoing it.
Yep.
Now think that if you have 1,000 employees in your company, then you'll spend $300,000 a year. But if you have 1,000 employees, then your company probably worth a lot of millions of dollars. And therefore, a breach can make you lose, one little breach can make you lose more than that.
And sometimes it's not just financial loss.
Yeah.
A breach, you have your financial loss, but you have your reputation.
Like Target.
Yeah. Target was a great example. When we talk with Target, you're talking about vendor programs.
Yeah.
Target breach didn't occur because someone hacked into Target. Yeah. Target breach happened because an HVAC company supplying to Target got breached.
Yeah.
They came in through a vendor. They did not get into Target's servers where they stored all the credit cards and said, hey, give me all the credit cards. They came in through a remote management for the thermostats.
That's critical, because it's not only the company per se, but all the third-party websites.
Yeah. So yeah, to the point, I've spoken a few times here about cybersecurity awareness training, security awareness training. So in my organization, Visa had their own group of security awareness training. We've retained our security awareness training, so I actually do a hybrid model of it, and I do kind of double up on it because I think it's one of those things you can't do enough of. My new employees, they don't get a login to my computers until they've gone through the security awareness training. In no way does a 1-hour cybersecurity, click here, don't do this, anti-phishing, don't, it doesn't make them an expert, but it makes them aware of it. And sure enough, within the first week, I'll target each and every one of them with something where I specifically will grab them, and I'm going to let the first one slide, the second one. But yeah, to your point, if you see the same employee falling for the same thing over and over again, you bring them into their manager's office. Here's the thing, you've been put on notice. If you don't take this seriously, there's not a place for you in the organization. And you got to do it once. Everybody starts falling in line.
And about what you asked about the AI, people are trying to develop AI against cybersecurities for many years. The problem here is that everything is being changed too often. And the AI, the complexity of AI are not yet in the level that is needed in order to do cybersecurity defense by itself. The human factor will always be the easiest, the weakest link in the chain. No matter how safe your servers will be, if someone will just let something in, all the firewalls will not help.
Receptionist sends in the guy shows up at your front door saying, hey, I'm from Dell or I'm from IBM, I'm here to fix something in the server room, and they walk them back to the server room and let the guy plug right in. Doesn't matter what firewall you have, you know, right? And it happens. You'd be amazed on how these, you know, it's the new day of con men and the social, you know, engineering. To your question on the, you know, the artificial intelligence and so forth, you know, you look back at it, antivirus is designed to be to detect viruses when they come in. They change too fast. It's basically been thrown out there that it's not effective. It's
My opinion is more of a hype, so I more focused on the human factor
Yeah.
because that's the big.
And it absolutely is. Now, on the opposite side of that, so where antivirus has fallen down, and back in the days it worked, but it's changing so rapidly these days, it's less effective. It has its place, but it's less effective. Cisco has something called Talos. IBM in level 3 are coming up with a program where they are, you know, trying to use artificial intelligence to recognize patterns all the way out at the very core edge of the internet, way above the humans, way above the servers, to detect things and shut it down. It's got a long way to go. The IBM Watson program is being used right now to try to, you know, counteract some of the stuff, but to the point, it's changing so rapidly that it's very, very challenging to get it there. It'll get there someday, possibly, but it's all we can do is try to strive to be better than we were yesterday.
When the code will not be binary, it will be a bit more complex, maybe. People, yeah.
But just new media, like the Internet of Things came along, and implantable. I mean, it's always something new that opens up a whole new hole. And
Just last week, you
You
know,
need to project.
the president of Visa was on site, and we were talking about different things, and you know how many credit cards are out there versus you know how many devices that accept credit cards. And with the Internet of Things, you're talking now. There's you know Visa's got 3 billion credit cards out in circulation, but there's 80 billion devices out there that accept credit cards. And you got to secure every single one of those. It's 80 billion devices. It's a huge thing. And now you can buy stuff in your car. You can buy stuff at a vending machine. You can buy stuff on the airplane. You're buying stuff all over the place where you just don't even realize it. And I in my house, I can say, hello, Alexa, order more toilet paper, and it's bought. You know, I don't even have to bring out a credit card anymore to do it. Every single one of those things is vulnerable to being attacked. And how do we secure it?
Yeah, point of sales are a very big issue.
Yeah.
All right, guys, well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you all for coming. Let's give a round of applause.